So definitions that I search up on Google, things that come up. It defines yoga as a type of exercise, true, in which you move your body into various positions, also true. This is something you can do with the purpose of becoming more fit, flexible, to improve your balance, your breathing, to de-stress, or to relax, and that it is a mindfulness practice. All true. But I just don't feel that any of those are the point of the practice. I feel like they are a result or consequences of a yoga practice. Another definition that comes up is spiritual and ascetic discipline, and I find that this one is a little bit more specific because it implies more of the context of what yoga is, which in the yoga history, which is further defined as severe self-discipline or abstinence from indulgence, typically for religious reasons. I feel that some of these won't translate very well to, say, our Western culture. And I know that aspects of it don't translate well to my personal practice. I would not define my practice as severe. I find that my practice is very, very gentle because personally, that's how I get the most out of myself, is by being gentle. Abstinence is certain, but I just feel that we may interpret it as like withholding something entirely. Like, I don't know, something being stolen from us or something like destitution. I'm trying here. That we think it has to do with neglect, as if we are being neglected, something is being withheld from us. And so we can act as if this abstinence is, we can twist it into something masochistic. And we can make the point of it to make ourselves suffer, which is ironic because the goal is enlightenment, which is to release yourself from suffering. But, so I do not support this approach. I do not support punishing ourselves. I think it makes it not accessible and definitely not sustainable, which it goes against my entire purpose of doing yoga personally and my desire to inform you of these things as well. It's just not my approach to yoga to make yourself the problem, that you have to man up or hustle to become something different because you aren't enough as you are. You need to twist yourself and become something else to do yoga, to be deserving of yoga, or so on. I feel like when you get here, when you believe that you inherently aren't enough for this and you need to change to be worth it or something, you hide in shame. It creates more stories. And from this bullying attempt to encourage yourself or to forge change, it just often backfires. It frequently backfires. And I think this line, going down this line, you end up creating blockages, and then you refuse to do honest self-reflection because it's too hard to face yourself because you have bullied all the self-worth out of yourself. And I've said, this journey, you have to be willing to meet yourself at the start line, and this is a dead stop. You won't go anywhere from here. I do have a note here that I'm not implying that this is the Indian meaning or behavior in this definition. I'm trying to say that this is often what we do. We strip ourselves of basically human decency, and it's time that we stop. So let's say there are two lineages of yoga. One that says we ascend or reach enlightenment in death, and the other being that we can meet it here in life. My personal approach is that we are here, we are living to enjoy life here and now. I just think that we can refine how we do this with yogic principles, and through doing this, we can do it better, we can live more efficiently, and therefore we can waste less without denying ourselves beautiful things in life, abstaining from the finer things in life. And of course, the definition of finer things in life could be delved into here, but I won't because I'll just go way off. So we'll just stop there. In the Yoga Sutras, which is basically the Yoga Bible, yoga is described as a balanced state between body and mind, emotions, thought, and intellect, as well as a balanced state of behavior. How I receive this again is that this is more the result of a yoga practice. It does not entail what a yoga practice is. What do you do? How do you do yoga? But also within the Yoga Sutras, there are 8 limbs that are outlined for a yoga practice. And in these 8 limbs is where we get a specific definition of what yoga entails. My personal definition that I've written down as a result of the information I just presented is just as vague as ever. But I personally like it. I find satisfaction in it, which is just that yoga is a diverse life practice. So it implies that it's diverse. There are many limbs, there are many aspects, there are many access points. There are many ways to do yoga, and that it is a life practice, which means it encompasses your whole life. You can do it for your whole life. Yoga is a diverse life practice. So the first of the 8 limbs is called the Yamas, which translates to restraint or discipline. And this one limb of the 8 limbs is also broken down into 5, say, sub-limbs of it. And I'm drawing attention to this just to show that they're, depending on how you're contextualizing, you can really change how much, like say yoga, your yoga practice is a piece of pie. You can change the ratio of how much is of each thing. Personalize it for your own life. The yamas, the first yama is Ahimsa, which is non-harming, and it is written that it's the key to harmonious relationships in the world and in yourself. So it's a key to harmonious relationships with your loved ones, with say your pets, the world, plants, and so on. But the point that I'm really trying to get to here is that it is about non-harming in ourselves, which brings me back to the masochism and how we like to cause ourselves harm, even if that's not our intention. So really driving into that this is a key concept of yoga, and it is about not harming yourself, about listening to your boundaries and acting within them, and stopping before you get to a point where you are causing yourself harm or damage. The second one being Satya, which is truthfulness. And of course that can be in what you say or how you say it. But beyond that, it really goes into, say, acting in accordance with who you say you are and your values. So really noting, what are your values? What do you value? What do you think are important? And really diving into them to recognize, are they actually your values? Or are they values that you've been taught that you just enact now as a habit, from your parents, from school, from media, whatever? Are they actually who you are? Because you may not be acting truthfully if you are behaving in ways that you say are your values, but they're not actually your values, where you could easily be acting in line with yourself if you just reflect on what you say your values are and see if they actually are, and maybe replace them and be more honest with yourself about what your values are. And then beyond that, it's also, are you realistic about your expectations of others? Specifically, are you honest about what you're offering to others? Right? Are you making false promises? Are you saying that you'll be here in this way, that you can do this or that, but then you don't show up? Are you living truthfully? The next one is Asteya, which is non-stealing. And of course, sure, of physical objects, absolutely. But the big one I want to hit is, are you stealing people of their choices? Are you stealing people's peace of mind, their choices? And this can kind of go into, are you living truthfully, right? That you can steal people's choices when you're not honest with them. If you are in a situation with someone and you were saying something is a certain way, then it's not, and they're giving you consent, they're not actually giving you consent because they're not informed of the truth, because you're lying. So being that manipulation is stealing. And of course there are many more examples to this, but the next sublimb, the next yama is Brahmacharya, which is moderating the senses. And I want to make a note here that it's moderating the senses, because later on withdrawal from the senses is something else, but moderating the senses. So I said above that I am above, I'm sorry, I'm reading off the screen. I said above, I said earlier that I am a firm believer in enjoying the finer things in life. And I do not think that this is counter to that. I do not think that they are separate things. Because by moderating their senses, it's really about you're facing, say, your 5 senses, whatever it is. Using food as an example. When you face what you're actually eating, rather than just shoving it in your mouth and chewing as much as you have to and then swallowing and drinking down and moving on. Taking the smaller bites, taking the time, slowing down, eating smaller bites, feeling the texture in your mouth, the temperature, the taste, and so on. Slowing down and moderating the senses to see what do you have too much of, what do you maybe not have enough of, and so on. Just honest reflection of what you have and what you need. And through this, I have it noted that it is freedom from compulsion, because you're slowing down, so you're almost intercepting these compulsive behaviors, these habits, and being able to really witness what it is that you're doing and what you're getting from it. Because if you can slow down, I feel like humility is a natural consequence of this. You notice how much you have and how many impressions you're actually receiving when you pay attention, and therefore you don't need to take as much, which comes back to we waste less this way. The next one, or the last one, did I go over 5 already? Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, and then the last one is Aparigraha, which is non-possessiveness. And I have no words of my own here. Well, I do, but the key things that I got here were from another article I read, and I will link it because I loved it. So first off, it says there's a yogic maxim that says, all the things in the world are yours to use, but not to own. Right? Aparigraha, non-possessiveness, showing restraint or discipline in this regard. Rolf Sovik, and this is the article from Yoga International, he worded it as, I love this so much, whenever we become possessive, we in turn become possessed. And I love looking at it through this lens, so that when we get possessive, it's rather than clinging to that need for control or whatever, rather than it being you, no, this is mine, or I have the best way of doing this, I can get the best results, or whatever it is, you recognize the behavior as not a horrible one that you can't face, you have to defend or whatever, right? You become ashamed of it, and you must validate this behavior to still accept or like yourself. If you can separate yourself from this behavior and see it, this behavior separate as you and separate from your worth, and recognizing, oh, this is not me, I am possessed right now. My relinquishing of this need for control, me relinquishing this moment, is me, and it is for me. And you can obviously look at it how you want. I know there can be words with a lot of meaning behind them, if you want to say like possessed by a devil or a demon or something, right? There's a lot of associations there, and if that takes you out of this this mindset, throw it away, right? But it's the whole, you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater type thing. That you can get away, you can ignore certain associations if they don't serve you at that time. But I love this idea of when you notice yourself becoming possessive, notice it as a state of being possessed, that this is what being possessed would or is, that would be or is. Personally, I find that very, very useful. Yeah, I love that. And because I feel like if you can bring yourself to a place where you can face this behavior and it's not, right? And you can avoid the shame, you can bypass the shame. Naturally, when you can do that, I think what follows is you can ask yourself, what is it that I need here? What do I actually want? If I let go right now, what am I afraid will happen? Or what am I afraid will not happen? So the second limb is Niyamas, which are observances, which again in itself there are also 5, and those being Saucha, so self-purification, which is choosing wisely what you consume, and moderating your senses can obviously come into play with this. It's beyond just what you eat or drink. It's inclusive, it's everything that you come across in your life, it's the thoughts that you have, which can be hard to keep track of or even notice when you're having them, when they just flit by and are replaced by just a dozen new or thoughts that are reliant on that first thought, say, that you unexamined, and then it's assumed as truth, and then all these next thoughts coming in are a result of this faulty thought. The thoughts you have, the movies or whatever music that you consume, that you take in, that you spend time with, how it impacts you, the people you are around, and that includes yourself, the environments, the workspaces, your hobbies, perhaps the weather, the house, the way it's set up, organized, and so on. Your relationships, again, it can be people, it doesn't have to be people, it can be your pets, it can be, again, with nature, with your house, whatever. The clothing you wear, and on and on and on. Self-purification, and I would just say that comes through being willing to face and moderate the senses. The second niyama is Santosha, which is contentment. That whatever you have in the present moment is always enough. I feel like we hear this all the time, but if you can really sit and observe this, practice this in your life, meditate on it, and perhaps meditate on the ways that it's already true in your life, to cultivate that sense of contentment. You can know it, you've heard it, yeah, obviously, but if you can think or write down or whatever, draw all the tiny little miracles day to day that bring you so much peace, this feeling of contentment will expand, and you'll really get a sense of what it means to you and what brings you that contentment as well. I have this blurt that I often write in my journal, because I can just get overworked and I can just start revving, and when I do that I have a hard time slowing back down. So when I'm like, oh, I can do this and this and this and this, and I have to do this, but I have to do this first, and it's just like, whoo, becomes inaccessible, I have a blurt and I write down, and that is enough for a lifetime. Obviously that's not true. You're eating something, sleeping, whatever, work, like it's not enough for a lifetime. You're gonna have to come back to it if you keep living. But it's just a way of letting myself off the hook, because I always have more plans and I always have more ideas that I want to do. But if I can just say all of these things, but just this, and that's enough for a lifetime. It's not, oh, but you'll do that later. You can only do that after you do this. You'll do it tomorrow. No, just completely a way of letting go, of releasing that possessiveness. And that is enough for a lifetime. And that one that sticks. I have a lot of blurts that I'll use, and I'll kind of cycle through them, and there will be periods where they don't work, but this one always hits me. Yeah, but when you can do that, when you can just, where I am at this moment, what I have, and it's enough for a lifetime. I never need anything else. I already have so much that from this place, anything else you gain or accomplish or whatever is a gift. It's a benefit or a privilege. And in this, you can find humility. So the next one is tapas. I believe they say tapas. How I'm saying it, I apologize if I'm not putting the emphasis on the correct vowels, but which is self-discipline, commitment, or showing up for yourself. And I feel like this is the scary part. This is where people can get so, they can trip up, or they can get confused, or they can be plagued by self-doubt, or have a difficulty with consistency in maintaining practices. I feel like this is the scary part. So often when it comes to creating habits and maintaining habits or breaking habits, and I have gone through the 8 limbs of yoga, reading about them in multiple sources and training and so on. I don't know why this one had never resonated with me the way that it is right now. It must just be the right time for me. But yeah, it's blowing my mind right now. And I really want to drive this one home, because I feel like this is where you can teeter back and forth between, I don't know, like a dichotomy of all or nothing or so on. This is what keeps the scales balanced or something. So I'll continue here. This is so fun because we often view it as a chore. So let us redefine what it looks like. It is fire. Literally, that's what tapas translates to, is fire. Not grind or punishment, not masochism. It is about consistency, and how do we maintain consistency? How can we create something that is sustainable? How do we make our fire sustainable, our inner fire sustainable for us? I have here, the consistency can show up in baby steps. Thread-like steps that make a beautiful tapestry is what I've noted here. And I really want to draw this home, because I don't know if it often comes from the fact that we feel like we don't do enough, we don't complete enough, we don't get it done fast enough, and so on, or the output doesn't match the intensity we feel over something that we love or something that we want to achieve. The fire can just burn so bright that we can lose perspective because it's all encompassing. And when fire gets out of control, it's extremely dangerous. So I just want to bring it back home with the perspective that it is in the baby steps, right? And coming into the tapestry, that is made of how many tiny, tiny, tiny little threads, which each little thread is like, you see a tiny little thread laying around, you're just going to wipe it onto the floor, sweep it up, whatever. It's nothing in itself, but literally a beautiful and detailed tapestry cannot be made without threads. And it is the same in life. It is the same with maintaining your fire, right? You starting a fire, you use twigs, right? Maybe not necessarily just twigs, but right, dry twigs, small twigs, not huge branches, not trees, twigs. Baby steps. I will never stop emphasizing this. I have here, so with focus and stability, impurities are burnt away. So that's the key, right? With tapas, it's the fire going out or it's blazing out of control. If we can bring them in, if we can have focus and somehow cultivate stability, and by that I mean for the long term, how do we do that? Impurities, loose ends, wasted energy, it burns away and it's self-contained, like a fire in a fire pit. It's contained and it burns bright and brilliant. And so often we burn bright and burn out rather than smoldering. It's like that saying about like burning bright and dying young, like being better than fading away. With this idea behind it, you're a live wire and that it's just this brilliant thing and you're so powerful and impactful and magnetic and so on. But I want to stop glorifying that idea and really talk about how that's dangerous and it's not sustainable. And what results will you get from that? Besides like some sort of appearance of being this magnetic force or something like that. Good and great things take time, patience, kindness, and commitment. And I think that commitment comes through the patience and kindness. Fire can blaze and burn down forests, but when you can contain it, you can allow it to burn brighter and for longer. Maybe not brighter than a forest fire, sorry, but it can burn bright and for longer. It can keep you warm, but it won't hurt you. We think fire burns bright and brilliant, and it scorches everything it touches, and it sets the world ablaze. And if it isn't this, it isn't fire. It's not worth it. But as I said, fire starts with twigs. Underbrush. It starts with the embers of a cigarette. And it's like a snowballing thing. It's the same with your fire. When you can really contain it and divert it from certain things. Okay, so I have here how to cultivate tapas and maintain it. This course is the preparation. This is you playing with that fire in yourself, feeling that fieriness that comes up when you talk about certain topics, when you are with certain people, when you read certain books or so on. You have this fieriness that starts up and you can have all this passion and you feel like a live wire, you do. And it's this desire to just externalize all this fire into something right then and there so you can prove yourself to it that it's worth it and that it has meaning and it's not just a surge of energy in your body that doesn't mean anything and won't go anywhere, because we have this belief, right, that it's this brilliant and bright thing. But then if it isn't, it's a lie. We're a fake. And it isn't real. And we turn away from shame and we ignore this feeling rather than facing it and really being able to fine tune how big it gets, how we start it, how we maintain it, and so on. This course in itself, I feel like, is a way about cultivating tapas and maintaining it. I really want that to infuse everything that I say in this course. I have noted here forethought. Preparation can get the best of you and you can become too stringent and too possessive. But forethought, thinking something through, looking at what might go wrong and what directions might go in, and then letting go of it and taking the course, and then at certain times maybe pulling out to the side kind of thing and re-examining. Okay, this was my forethought before. This is how it worked. In what ways isn't it working? Let's change that and let's keep going. Or maybe, okay, cool, we're actually doing pretty good. But now that I'm at this new perspective, I'm noticing these new things. That has to come into my forethought. Cool. I have this context, this outline in my head. Okay, let's close the book and let's get back to it. It's about preparing for lulls and not giving into them. I wanted to say that you buying this, you showing up to this video, it's you having pieces of paper nearby. These are all examples of you gathering those twigs and starting a fire. It's in you closing this course, closing the internet tab, whatever, before you burn out and trying to consume it all in one sitting. It's you closing it, showing that restraint, and knowing that you'll come back to it. Yeah. And that's something I am definitely dealing with right here and right now. I started recording it this morning. I thought I'd do the first module and I'd leave it alone. That was enough for the day. After these months of forethought and planning, you are now going to take the action. You're going to press record and you're going to do one module, and that is enough. You are going to stop and you're going to back away. Here I am in module 2, same outfit, same background, same hair. I didn't stop. I will after this module. And that is me practicing that restraint, observing what I'm doing, observing the fire is getting out of control and pulling it back, closing it, knowing that I will come back another day. Despite I have all this fire and I want it to burn bright and I want to maintain it and I want it to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Needing to recognize that it can get too big and it can get out of control. Damage can happen. I don't have to be afraid that the fire will die out or that I won't know how to start it again. It is in showing up, even in the face of the critical voice inside, which is usually the hardest fight. Fire is powerful and can injure, but when you respect it, it is safe. There is magic behind a contained fire. Right? It can heat an entire house. It can preserve life within it if used wisely. We view it as big, powerful declarations, long strides, and if it isn't in those things, it's not really fire. But it's easy to show up in those big, powerful ways and show off and have the glory behind that. But I feel like there's a habit of when you always give in to the big things and then you don't follow through, or you can't sustain the big sweeping gestures or actions, we don't believe in ourselves and we think we're not enough to sustain this. But it's because you used all of this fire in these, say, 3 things rather than spreading it over more things. Because we believe it's like we're not enough to complete this thing, so we just have to give everything we are and more. I have to burn out to make this worth it to other people or to myself, rather than thinking you are enough. You have so much fire and so much insight. You have so much. You are so much. You don't have to put all your eggs in one basket and then you're not worth anything else, right? That's not the point. You are enough, and it's better to spread it out. It is the discipline it takes to take baby steps. It's about getting no results and not walking away without losing hope. It is the patience to keep going, right? It's the patience the discipline to not put out the fire. If it's not as big as you want or whatever, putting it out and like, what's the point? It's like destroying something that you've built rather than being like, okay, I have this done. I am plagued by self-doubt right now. I'm sick. I feel like I just got in a fight with someone and I feel like I'm being selfish. This isn't enough. I don't deserve to do this. It's having those narratives, but not destroying what you've built. Respect yourself enough in the thought and the effort and the fire that it took to create whatever it is that you're creating, and that you can just leave it. You can back away. You can back away for an hour. You can back away for years. You do not have to destroy things, because these things, these thought babies or whatever they are, that's your treasure. Do not destroy them. I like this. If we are handed our desires, the way that those big fiery declarations, right? If we're just handed that, we are not the people who will sustain it. And I love that. We have to become that person, which takes discipline, which takes slowing down, which happens one step at a time. This is where change happens. It's in you tempering that fire, right? Redirecting it, whatever it is. That is how you become the person. You have a goal in your head of something you want to do or achieve, someone you want to be, parts of yourself that you want to grow. It's doing the baby steps, using tiny little flames to sustain things. And the patience. and I don't know, disengaging from the glory, the need for glory of a big fire and having many little flames contained, and sustaining that flame that creates change. Like, I'm rambling here, but again, I just feel like this is so important. If that big fire that you doused with kerosene, if you can't have that, you don't want anything. You are hurting yourself by doing that. You want this thing, but if you're just handed it, you are not the person who understands the nature of fire enough to keep it contained, to keep it safe, to keep it burning. You have to be someone who learns how to build a fire, how to sustain it, the context, right? The outer limits, the limitations of it, the dangers and the privileges, all of it. You have to understand these things, which you learn through the process. And then through that process, you will achieve whatever goal it is that you wanted for yourself, but you will then be the person who did it. You will then be the person who can sustain it. And you will be that person. You will be those parts of yourself that you once thought were just wishful thinking. This is from an article, so I'm going to have to find it and link it to you because I love it. Talking about how you can, a way of maintaining and being able to try and control the fire is by layering it with the other principles, the other disciplines and observances and yoga practices. You can layer your fire by disciplines of non-harming. That's a way that you are, say, wetting the ground. So the fire can't go in a certain direction. You are directing it. You're putting boundaries around this fire, or whether it's a fire pit, whatever it is, right? You're layering it with this truthfulness. You're layering it with non-harming. You're layering it with self-study by observing yourself and your behaviors and so on, and the outcomes and what happens if you tweak this or tweak that, that slowness, that observation, that slowly being willing to take another step, meeting a barrier, redirecting, right? Going in a slightly different trajectory and continuing on. You can temper. And in this sense, your fire is more powerful. You have more control over how it's expressed and to what extent, in what directions. I have here that in my journal, I intercept this fire. The fire's getting away from me. Let's see here if I can find it. November 25th is when I wrote it, it says. Let's see here. November 25th. I detailed my next baby steps. I said I can feel my fire being windblown toward the modules like a hunter to its prey. Unnecessary. I say, I wet the grass in this direction so the fire smolders, so that I have to observe and then I have to redirect. That isn't to say I wouldn't work on over a module or two today. The point is to not dive headlong, lose perspective, and neglect other tasks in my obsession. And leave today feeling burnt out and unsatisfied because the fire is all-consuming and is never satisfied unless all is consumed. I don't want that for this moment, for my asana practice, or for this course. That if you do not contain the fire and you dive headlong and you lose perspective and you neglect everything else in your path, you just set ablaze to everything in your obsession, you will be burnt out or burnt up and unsatisfied. Because the fire, I'm viewing it as a beast right now, that if there is no restrictions around it, there is nothing to temper it. If there are no boundaries, if there's nothing to restrain it, it will just continue burning, that it will, or consuming, it will just continue consuming until everything that you have or that you think you have or that you know is burnt up and consumed by this fire. And it still will not be satisfied. It will still be more. It will still want more. But I just want to note that I don't think that is a reason to be afraid of your own inner fire, right? Like, I'm using obviously quite the imagery there, and it's really just about how big and how powerful that fire is. But when it is directed, like different streams, you it can keep you so warm, and it can really add so much to your life in so many different dimensions. Life sucks, but it doesn't have to, because it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I'll just leave it there. The next one is Svadhyaya, which is self-study. And the way that I've worded it here is to be self-involved consciously. Of course, there are restrictions around that, but I feel like being human and having, a thinking mind, a personality, an ego, we're going to be self-involved sometimes and in some ways. But I feel that there is just nothing but shame stories surrounding being self-involved. It is viewed as a negative thing when people are self-involved. But I think that we are taught in life to betray ourselves in so many ways that it's like when people are, their basic needs, say, aren't fulfilled, they become desperate to receive them, to have these needs fulfilled. And it's like, I'm imagining here that your inner fire isn't checked when you have something that you say you've been neglected in a certain way, and you are just you have blinders on, and you just need this, and you go in this direction, and you need to have this thing fulfilled or done because it's been held back and you haven't had it the way that you need it. It's like you don't recognize when you have it, when you have enough. You're not moderating things. You just feel that you're in this space of destitution always in this regard, and nothing is ever enough, and your need is all consuming. I think it can be the same way when being self-involved. So often I feel like we're faced with shame stories about how it's bad and how you shouldn't and how it's selfish and whatever else it might be, that we think giving ourselves time, attention, love, and giving ourselves priority is a bad, selfish thing. And there's a lot of shame around it, but then we try to find it in these other ways, so we become sneaky and dishonest to have these needs fulfilled. And we cause more harm by doing so to ourselves and others. So I want to say it with boldness and with fire. Be self-involved consciously. That way, you don't have to be it unconsciously or subconsciously. You're not going to be fighting to receive this thing and not even be aware of the fire and where it's going and what you're doing with it to temper these things. That if you give yourself time and space to think about yourself, that is a good and beautiful thing, and you deserve it. I don't allow, but I encourage you to allow yourself to think about yourself and to contemplate on you and what it means to be you. Because when you give yourself the space, the time, the energy to focus on yourself and how you've acted, what you think, how you responded, how you felt, what it meant to you, what you liked, what you didn't like, and so on, you get to know yourself. And that is your power. With that said, right, we want to put some boundaries around it. When is it too much? But personally, I do find that the more that I allow myself to do this, again, it's about the moderation thing. So if I can do this, I can be out with other places with other people, and I don't know, I feel calm and reassured in who I am in my own dimensions, and I don't need, I'm not finding the words here, but I feel that I can give more to other people, and I can be more present for other people, and I can be understanding of their own brains and the way that they work and their own needs and their own errors, because I give myself grace regarding my own. I guess that's my point. But of course, Svadhyaya is not just about self-study in yourself. It's about how everything is one. And when you study yourself, you're studying life. You're studying everything. You're studying other people. You're learning about other people. You're learning about life and so on. So studying life, it could be different texts. It can be historical texts. It can be reading literature, whatever, stories. It's about the self-purification kind of thing too. Self-study, self-purification. It's not about removing everything that's bad. It's acknowledging what's good. Any given thing, when is it good, when is it bad, what is the tipping point? This would be a part of your self-study, is self-purification. What is it? How do I purify? What things am I going to bring back to myself that are pure, that do infuse me with life and purpose and meaning and direction and kindness and so on? right? So it could be texts, stories, culture, life, and seeing things, how you relate and take place with and amongst the other things. I just have here that you are the agent that you need to act. But an agent ignored or unappreciated checks out. And again, if the starting point is you, you need to meet yourself. Do not ignore yourself. Do not appreciate yourself. Appreciate yourself. Self-study, I really want to just draw attention here again to a journal. There are so many different ways that you can take practice in a journaling practice. But I just wanted to note that a journal is a wonderful place to do this in. I will get into that a little bit more as I go on, but I just wanted to touch base here that this is self-study, or at least an aspect of self-study. So the last of the Niyamas is, I apologize again if I say this incorrectly, Ishvara Pranidhana, which is self-surrender. Again, the self being God in everything. You are surrendering into yourself. This is the collective consciousness. It is about releasing control. And that when this happens, the results of your practice on or off the mat, your expectations are released. You cease to be, or take a broader perspective, I suppose, than being you here now on this mat, taking these poses or doing these practices with this music, and it's this time, and this is how long I've been doing it, and this is where I need to go after. You are completely present in the moment, and expectation, control, possessiveness is released, and you have faith. The forethought and the planning, and it is not necessary, because it's like that external control or perspective you're trying to attain is sublimated or realized internally. Your faith is well-founded. Allowing things and you to be what they are. And in this way, you can be in the present moment. I want to say that we are never fully engaged because we're always anticipating what comes next in some big or small way. And it's about, I have place energy in the now, but I don't feel like it's a conscious thing where it's like you are placing your energy now. It's a surrender. It's, oh, I just had a connection there I wanted to draw attention to, but I think it's gone now. Place energy now. Right. It's a result of your yoga practice. It is not something that you consciously do. It's a result of your yoga practice. There's a quote I love by C.S. Lewis. Give me a second. I always remember it in the wrong order. The present moment is when time touches eternity. And so the only time you can truly be present, that you can truly be in eternity, in everything, is when you surrender to the moment. The present moment, the moment that currently is when time, linear time, how we perceive time in life, touches all of eternity. I imagine it as when light, oh my goodness, what are the words? My mind's blanking. But when you see light going through something and it becomes a rainbow, that's what I'm seeing. It's when, light touches the glass, you see the rainbow. It's when time touches eternity. That's the present moment. I resonate on that all the time because I just feel so much reverence around that statement. And it always helps me be in the moment, regardless if it's only for a couple seconds. It's such a nice reminder. It's a breath of fresh air. And I hope it helps you as well. I have preparation, right? It's great. But when it comes time, it needs to be put to the side. You have to accept the work that has been done. You have to trust yourself and have faith in life and just be here now. Thinking about the past, preparing for the future, it is exerting energy. Being in the present moment brings energy in. It is when we are plugged in to life. It is how and when we charge. I have, do not relinquish control. It's not about relinquishing control, because you never had any. It's about relinquishing your need for control. So the third limb of yoga is asana. And I just want to settle on that simple statement for just a minute here. The third out of 8 limbs of yoga is asana. This limb, this is comprised of the physical postures. This could be considered the exercise part of yoga. I have here that asanas are yoga, but yoga is not just asana. And I want to really push this just because I feel like so often we can get caught up in the fact, not even in the fact, in this idea maybe that this is a yoga practice, right? It makes sense. I'm not trying to make any sort of judgment against it, but it's just interesting how we will say, oh, I'm doing a yoga practice, or oh, when I did yoga the other day or something. And I don't know if I have ever heard anyone make that remark and not mean asana. Which, again, isn't wrong, right? Like, asana is yoga. I just feel like we really limit our idea surrounding yoga because this is basically our concept of yoga. And we know there are mindfulness techniques and breathing that underlies it, but I feel like we often still view it as an on-the-mat practice. We still view it as these things are accessories to a yoga practice that you can add to a practice on the mat, rather than seeing yoga as a diverse life practice that infuses everything you do in life. And that this is just a part of it. I have here that what I'm trying to get across is that you should not feel that because the asanas you practice, or the ones that you know, or the frequency that you do them, or the duration that you hold any given posture, that this makes or breaks your yoga practice. That is your yoga practice. That's such an interesting thing to reflect on. What sort of postures do you find yourself taking more often or staying in? Which ones are easier to stay in? Do you not stay very long? That's not a point of shame. I don't think that has to be something that you're like, well, you know, I'm not strong enough to hold it longer, or I don't have the stamina, or whatever. I have to get better. I'm not trying to say there isn't validity to that line of thinking, especially if your goal is to be able to hold postures for longer, if one of your goals with it is fitness. But I feel like asana is like the gateway to yoga. And so often when people feel that they can't keep up, or they don't measure up, or they don't fit in, or whatever, with a yoga community or in a studio or something like that, they think, oh, yoga's not for me. When I want to say that in a way, I feel like there are different, obviously, schools of thought, right? And yoga can overlap with a lot of other ones. So you might not necessarily practice yoga. It might not be informed by the Indian culture and an Indian philosophy. But regardless, I feel, of how spiritual or religious or not you are, principles and tenets and limbs of yoga, you are practicing them anyway, because it's just a part of life. Sometimes you just might take more of a conscious role in doing these things. But when we view, I don't know, oftentimes when we view asana as an entire yoga practice, we're just, I feel like, setting ourselves up for failure, because again, we have to prove ourselves to be worthy of like gaining a key to get access through the gate, rather than being like, it is an access point to your yoga practice. And that's what I have here. This asana and asana practices is merely a way of accessing yoga. This limb is an access point to yoga, or within your yogic journey. and it is not yoga itself. The fourth limb is pranayama, which is breathwork. Now, I have no specific training or certification in any sort of pranayama area. Just basically what I've learned from, anatomy and physiology from massage schooling, as well as my 200-hour training for yoga, wow. Which will obviously inform what I present here, and of course my own personal practice as well. But what I have here is I want to expand our concept of breath, because we are not taught how to breathe. Because we do so instinctively, but we could benefit from it. I do also highly suggest that you do dive into pranayama in your own time. As I said, I won't... My day of accessing the breath, I would not say is pranayama. Like, there will be obviously some pranayama like principles and ideas and concepts that are regarded and offered, but I'm not teaching you breath work. But there are many ways of accessing your breath, altering your breath, and suspending your breath, etc. And I'm not here to attempt to educate you on this. But it is incredibly useful and incredibly beautiful. And if anything, I hope to impart some sort of passion in you so that you will feel fire in yourself toward this topic, so that you will want to explore pranayama, because there's much you can gain from it. I said that I want to focus on basic breath, basic interventions that underlie our practice and our lives, so we can develop a relationship. Just as we want to do with our body, we also want to do that with our breath as well. Get to know it and what you can do, so that you can play with it more consciously in your day-to-day life, and therefore you can benefit better. You can benefit more from it. In regard to pranayama and what I will be including, I just made a note here that anything that I do work on will be rooted in Ujjayi, which from my understanding is a basic or an introductory breath for pranayama. So I'll just be sticking there, because I feel that there's enough content that I will cover in this course, and I don't want to just make it heavier with any more information. I just want to make a note here that I really hope that you do further investigation in your own time in regard to this limb. And here we are on the fifth limb, which is Pratyahara, and this is the withdrawal from the senses. Where before we had moderation of the senses, this is its own limb, and it's about withdrawing from the senses, which is really about being able to control your senses. So again, it can be food, the sense perception, it can be impressions and associations that you have, narratives that you have about other people, about yourself, about the way the world works, and so on. It's about stepping away to gain perspective. You step away and observe the food that you eat, the impressions that you're taking on that so often we don't even realize are pressing upon us, our associations with people. It's about removing yourself from the river of events or narratives and being able to view them maybe more objectively. And then about control, it's a process of refinement, just like with the moderation aspect, only this one is not just about moderating and maybe playing with it so much, it's about withdrawing from them, being separate from them, and that really what is there without these impressions is the question, because it's not nothing. Yeah, I have here that is, then you choose and replace these wrong influences with the right ones, which could be reworded, but I'm sure it gets some information across, right? So you can view things more objectively, and also seeing yourself free of them. Because when you take impressions in I feel like you're also taking these things on, and then it changes the way your expectations that you have of yourself and how you view yourself, and you might not even realize this is happening. So if you're able to back away and really, again, try and look at it more objectively, then you can decide what things actually mean and which ones are necessary to take on, which ones are beneficial, and so on and so on. And I do have a link here that I would love to attach as well from the Yoga International, considering Pratyahara as yoga's forgotten limb. And I hope you read that as well, even just to glance over it and see what catches your eye. That's enough. So this is actually a collection of the last 3 limbs of yoga. Together they are called Sanyam. So in the Yoga Sutras, it's said that the last 3 stages of yoga should be viewed collectively, as they are a recession into deeper and deeper concentration, or if you prefer to view it this way, a progression into deeper and deeper concentration. So you might think this just means meditation, but meditation is technically one of them, depending again on how you want to define meditation, of course, but together they are Sanyam. So number 6 is Dharana, which I saw some conflicting information about a couple of these, so forgive me if I maybe make it a bit more confusing than it needs to be. Let's see. So Dharana, from what I have, is that it's concentration. And this can be on an object outside, or say an impression or something, or a sensation inside. It's just concentration. You are remaining concentrated on something. And your ability or your willingness to simply concentrate on something and bring yourself into it, back into it every time that you slip away. It's like exercising a muscle. You can do it better, you can do it for longer, and it'll lead you to a deeper concentration, an uninterrupted concentration. Which comes into Dyhana, which is where total concentration is achieved. This meditation is effortless. So in a sense, I guess you could view it as a true meditation. Although with that said, I do want to encourage you to have your own personal definition of meditation, because if viewing something as meditation helps you to stick with something, or focus on something, or find joy in something, do it. Like a flow state is what I'm thinking of, right? When you're working on something, you can imagine that you're getting into this flow state where you're not necessarily concentrating on anything, and that in itself is almost a type of meditation. I just want to the definition to be inclusive, that I think there's a lot of benefit to having your own personal idea or definition of meditation, or even having maybe a fluid definition of it. Because I think you can reach and create many different types of meditative states, and I don't want any of that to seem like it somehow is lacking because it's not real meditation. I don't like that. So Dhyana is the culmination of your meditation process. So I love that, even that itself is right. This isn't just meditation. This is the culmination of your meditation process. Yeah, and it was detailed that this limb is specifically talking about meditation as one you come to with a prepared and exercised mind. So it takes practice to be able to reach this particular type or level of meditation. And it's detailed that this is done with the use and accomplishment of the prior 6 limbs, which I want to note because I think it's important, but at the same time, I do want to also add a little note beside my note that it's just, I don't want you to feel like this somehow makes yoga inaccessible, that if there are certain limbs or certain aspects of certain limbs that, really light up that fire, I don't want you to ignore them and thinking, oh, well, I can't do that because I'm not allowed to, or I can't actually do it because I haven't achieved or accomplished the first 6 limbs or something like that. I don't want you to view it like that. I have it here that you can practice different aspects of yoga in their own right. You can mix up the order. It's just that the accomplishment or the achievement, let's just go with it, of the prior 6 will give way to a different level of this state, or a pure expression or experience of this limb. And I have here too that just as how pranayama before an asana practice can completely shift the asana practice, it makes the practice an entirely different thing. I don't know if I touched on that yet, but wow, I hope I go on it a little bit more because seriously, it's amazing. And then we reach limb 8, which is samadhi. And this is the third part of Sanyam, which also in itself happens in stages, which I find particularly interesting. This is enlightenment, essentially. Again, you're taking further and further steps into concentration. Yeah. And it's the highest you can get while still tied to a human body and human consciousness. So I do have a link here as well, because samadhi itself happens in stages. I do have a link to the 3 levels of samadhi. But what I have here, so you have the Sanyam is made of Dharana, Dyhana, and Samadhi. So with those 3, I imagine Dharana being like the plane going onto the taxiway. If we're looking at stages of meditation, say, it's the plane going onto the taxiway, which you then come to Dyhana, right? So you can't get to Dyhana without actually being in the plane, without the plane traveling on the taxiway to get to the runway, basically, where Dyhana is the plane picking up speed on the runway, right? It has found its station, it's sitting there, the plane quiets down, and then it starts picking up speed and going forward. Uninterrupted, effortless meditation, straight and true. And from here, you have samadhi, which is essentially liftoff. So the process goes as follows. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dyhana, and Samadhi. In other words, in English words, that is restraint or discipline, which leads to observances. So by having a disciplined mind or disciplined body or emotions, whatever it is, by slowing down, by meeting yourself, by practicing discipline, which can come in many different forms, it allows you the space and the quiet to observe things, to truly observe things as they are. And it's almost like this foundation here leads you, I don't want to say just leads you to postures, but it leads you to an integrity within the postures, right? You can practice asana, but I feel that, again, if you view yoga as just asana and all you're doing is taking the poses, there are so many aspects feeding into this that are dry. And I think that's just such a shame, because if you can really layer it, or you not even layer it, like I said, the foundation, if you can really practice these different restraints and principles, and you can do take the time to observe these other things, and not just once and done or for a couple seconds, but again, cumulative in itself, it takes time. And as you observe more and as you restrain more, you're better at it, you notice more, and so on and so on. This underlying your asana practice, before you come to an asana, you will come to your body differently. So from this, and from being able to take these postures and having these restrictions, you then can play further with breath control. You have a steadiness in your body and an awareness of your body and your mind that leads you to a refined sense of breath control, and being able to play with it, which feeds back into all the previous limbs and the quality of them and the quality of your experience of them, right? So once you refine your mind, you've refined your body, you've refined your breath, you are then Pratyahara, you are able to control your senses. And this level of refinement and control and restriction, or this burning away of impurities and revealing what's true, what's left, leads you into concentration, meditation, and absorption. So as I said before, it does not have to be linear. You can practice, you can practice any of these things, really, to see what your experience is like, to see what you get from them. Because say you're going to focus on breath control before you start doing certain postures, or say you're really interested in pranayama and you're doing more breath control work, and then you want to go back and you want to focus on the yamas or niyamas or something like this. This focus that you've created with breath control, this awareness of yourself and this slowing down, it could prime your mind to be able to be more disciplined, to observe more things, to observe clearer, and so on. So again, I just don't want it to feel inaccessible. My last note here for this module is just says ways of practicing yoga. What are ways you can practice yoga? And I have that. There are 5 yamas. There are 5 niyamas. That's already 10. There's 3 levels of samadhi in itself. That's 13 ways of practicing yoga. And how many breath exercises are there? How many asana? How many different ways can you meditate? You personally, not even looking in research. Obviously you can absolutely look and study and find different ways, but even you personally, in what ways do you find meditation in life? How many senses or impressions can you withdraw from or moderate? Right? There's just infinite ways to practice yoga. You are probably practicing yoga all the time in so many ways. So rather than viewing yoga as something that you have to live up to, view it as something that infuses every aspect of life. Because it does.